Tom Lavecchia here with a continuation of our New Theory podcast. And talk about podcasts, the Romans say, speaking to the lion, as we have Mr. Nathan Latka, who I like to call the Godfather of business podcasts. Nathan, how you doing today?
Tom, you're hired. That's the best intro I've ever heard.
Well deserved. So we're going to jump right into it because there's a lot to cover. So I like to start off with the formative years. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? And what were some of your earlier influences?
Yeah, born in Northern Virginia, Loudoun County specifically in 1989. Birthday is October 3rd. Early influencers or influences obviously your parents, you point to that, but I also have many tools that they kind of connected me with. For example, Lincoln Logs, Connects, Legos, things of that nature. Those were the early years.
So you were a tinkerer, let's call it. And then, were you like the lemonade stand kid? Did you build like cooler kites? Like what was your earlier developmental, I guess, leads, if you will, to show who you are now?
Yeah, look, first off, when you look at the lemonade kind of example, I'm a big believer in selling pickaxes to gold miners. The people taking the risk are the ones going to look for gold.
Yes.
But if you can convince people there's gold over there, even if you have no idea if it's there, but if you can convince them there is, convince them to go look for it, and they need X, Y, and Z tools to execute the process of looking for gold, that's way less risky. So I would have been the kid selling additional sugar packets next to the lemonade stands because I know people want sugar to add to the lemonade they just bought to make it sweeter. And that way I don't have the risk of building a whole lemonade stand and renting the space myself. That's a different story, though. My first business, I actually would go and convince my mom to buy 100-piece bags of candy from Costco for like $5. And then I would take each piece of candy and sell it for 50 cents on the bus ride, especially on the way to school because people had lunch money. That was my first taste of capitalism.
Nice. I like it. So, all right. So you started early. I believe I'm actually a follower of yours. Been following you for a while. Your first.
How'd you find me? Why'd you start?
Initially, I got into podcast listening. I want to say 2-3 years ago, and you came up through some press at the time, and I think believe still are one of the world's top business podcasters. So
by the way, that press, and there was a lot of it, shocked me because I was launching that show from like Blacksburg, Virginia, and before you know it, all these huge outlets, I'm talking Entrepreneur, Wall Street Journal, are saying #1 business show, and then below me, you have Tim Ferriss, who I respect so much, and many other people. So I don't know what happened, but something about the show people are loving.
Love it, and over 1 million downloads and continuing. So you started early in the business world. See, what I like about you, there's kind of two types. You got the podcaster who's like pontificating, but they didn't do shit, right? Or you have the person that maybe did it, but they might be a little too busy to podcast, or they have an ego, or whatever, right? Because a podcast is a grind. But you do both, or did both. So your first big venture, was it Heyo, or did you have a win before that?
We'll define what a win is in your terms.
Okay, so obviously you had a big exit and a big startup at 19 with Heyo. I guess maybe did you start a smaller company at 17 and exit maybe in the six figures, or sell it off, or what was your first real business venture?
Yeah, look, so there's also a lesson built in here when you look at like an Elon Musk of the world, where everyone just remembers like SpaceX and everything. His first business, no one ever talks about this. He started an agency, a marketing agency, that he sold for a little amount of money, and it creates momentum. Yeah. And so every successful entrepreneur, they're lying to you if they said, I just launched this and it was a huge hit. They always, whether they realize it or not, created some kind of momentum, and the momentum propelled them into their big win. So yes, I had created a bunch of things before that. Maybe, it depends on how you define an idea, right? But maybe a dozen different ideas before that either made me money, or I broke even, or lost me money before I really got deep into Heyo.
Got it. All right. So let's focus on Heyo for a minute. So Heyo was I believe one of your biggest moves. Walk us through how you started it, who you founded it with. Was your plan? Did you execute on your plan? Did you get out at the right time? Give us kind of where you were and how it ended up.
Yeah, Heyo was actually one of my smallest moves if you're actually measuring the risk, right? Wow. To me, it was very predictable. It was very de-risked. I had pre-sold $70,000 worth of the product, which was a Facebook fan page. Yeah. That money was actually in my PayPal account. And by the way, I just did an interview this morning for my show, The Top Entrepreneurs on iTunes, Tom.
Yeah.
And the guy and I argued because he's saying, Nathan, I have 1,000 customers. Then I asked him his revenue, and I said, what do you mean you have no revenue? You just said you had 1,000 customers. And he said, well, Nathan, these are non-paying customers. I'm like, well, what the hell is a customer if they're not paying? That's called a free user. That's called an expense. That's called a support expense. That's not a customer. And he's going, well, I like to think of them like customers. And I'm like, that's a great way to go bankrupt really fast. Whatever. My point was, the quickest way to validate an idea is to sell the idea on the idea alone and get the prepayment, because people will lie to you and they don't know they're lying. Your best friends will say, Tom, it's a great idea. You should do it. It's a baloney. Make them pay you. I don't care what you're building. I don't care if you're selling a car, you're building a cybersecurity piece of software or anything else. Make them pay you up front, because that will save you the time and effort of building some piece of shit that nobody's going to, use. So that's what I did. And it was very, to me, there was no risk because I had some money saved from working at a burger chain called the West End Grill at Virginia Tech while I was studying architecture. I had 8 months. If I had made no money, I had 8 months of expenses saved. And so I took a risk on the business, and that went on I grew to about $30,000 in monthly recurring revenue in about 6 months. Nice. We raised $550,000 from some of the world's really top investors. David Cohen from Techstars, 500 Startups. Amazing people. And that was, by the way, if your folks are interested in terms, that was on a convertible note at a 6% interest rate, 25% discount, and $5 million cap.
Oh, wow.
And you can Google those terms if you're curious. But
now, I'm more familiar than most. My one question, though, about convertible note is, who decided if it converts, the investor or the principal?
It depends, right? Usually in the note, it says at the next valuation event, which is usually a Series A, unless you sell early, they will convert to that valuation. Now, some of the things, one of the things that people do to get creative is I will say, I get to choose as the founder if you convert or not. So if I choose not to convert you into your equity, I then have to pay you back your $500,000 plus 6% interest.
Correct.
But that might be worth it if I have a huge valuation. But many times, those angel investors, you want to reward them for betting on you early. So you want them to convert in, even if it's not a good deal for you at that point, because you have to remember they supported you first.
Got it. So it's basic gambling. You're hedging. You're saying, hey, give us some money. We're going to pay you back, and you can take your money and run. Or, hey, I want to be on board. It'll convert at either a cap or at a later date, and then you move on after that point. And then ideally, it's either a strategic partner or, at the very least, somebody who's very well heeled. Would that be a good assumption?
Those angel investors want the latter, right? Yeah. They're not going to. I've never heard of an angel calling a note, meaning when the note expires, them saying, okay, entrepreneur, you have to pay us $500,000 now, because usually that entrepreneur does not have that cash in the bank, and that would put them bankrupt. And the last thing an angel wants is a founder going, never work with that angel. He bankrupted my last company, right? You're not going to get any new deal flow.
Now, is there a deal where when you pay back, would you pay back over a fixed period, like a mortgage to hedge on both sides, or it's usually a lump sum?
That's all. Look, I think all that's negotiable if you do it that way.
Got it. All right. So you know what you're doing. You know how to raise money. What happened with the exit? So let's talk about the good stuff. And you asked some pretty direct questions in your podcast, so it's okay. I'll do the same. What was the exit amount?
You're listening to my podcast?
Yeah. I didn't love the makeup lady last time. We'll get into that in a second. Because
I'm curious too why you listen, because some people hate it. Some of the reviews are like, Nathan's horrible, he's rude, he cuts people off, and some people say, I love it. It's short, he gets all the revenue numbers and the data, he gets the CEOs to tell everyone what they pay themselves. I've never had data like this.
Yeah, okay, I want to stop. Yeah, you're right. I want to get it why I love it. I love it because I'm a dough, not a show guy, and I want to know what people make. I want to know how much they're earning. I want to know, if an exit was $4 million, how much did you pocket? How much did you pocket after taxes? Yep. Did you dick around in Thailand for a year afterwards, or did you go back on the grind? So it all depends kind of how you do it, because we all talk about the end or the beginning. You're catching people kind of on the grind. I want to know what's going on. I'm in a situation, we'll talk later, but where I'm starting up New Theory, but I'm older. I'm 41. And do I pay myself, not pay myself? I need to know what the hell to do, and I want to listen to people who are successful, so I like how you cut to the chase. The makeup lady I didn't like is because if you listen to your show, you ask fucking real questions. So when you kept asking those real questions...
Like what?
What was that? How many units are rebought by clients? it's okay to answer. I'm a marketer. It's okay to answer that. You're not going to disrupt either way your competitors or your investors. You ask their what they call it the round at. Like, I'm sorry, but you do a little digging online and you have the right law firm or right whatever. This shit's half public most of the time.
Yeah.
So I was just a little frustrated that like she either didn't listen to your show, right, and doesn't know your format, or she's just using it for press.
Yeah, well, some things that look, I do have people trying to weasel their way on. I mean, look, the show's doing very well. It's 4 million downloads. I mean, it's unbelievable. And that's why people are listening. It's 15 minutes every morning, and I get cut to the chase. What was your last valuation? How many customers? What do you pay yourself salary? Are you married, single, divorced? I mean, all the good stuff.
That's what I love about it. So let's put Nathan Latka on the block a little bit, right?
Yeah.
All right. So number one for Heyo, what was the exit amount?
Well, let me answer that, but I want to get your prediction first to see if you're right or wrong. If I asked you, you know a little bit about me. If I asked you to look at my history and you tell me what you think my biggest financial windfall was, where I made the most money in my life, what would you guess? And then I'll tell you about Heyo.
I was going to guess Heyo at 4 million, and I was going to guess you probably watered down to 1/3 of the company at the time. That would be my guess.
Okay, what would your second guess be if I told you it wasn't Heyo?
The new one is a tip the box, whatever. You got to forgive me another exact name.
The top www.topinbox.com.
Topinbox.com. So that's your current. So that can't be it. I don't know what your biggest exit is, or I don't know what any exits outside of that.
Well, let me start by telling you where I've made the most money over my life.
Okay.
Podcast sponsorships.
Holy shit!
Wow. Right, so that number's in the millions at this point, right? And I think it's stupid Look, I love Pat Flynn, as a guy, and I love John Dumas, and they put out these monthly income reports because it's a great content piece, but it's also not smart, right? There's a finite amount of people willing to sponsor a podcast, and when I can go to those pages and literally pick off their sponsors, right, which is what I did with John. I didn't do it with Pat, but I did do it with John very successfully. Those sponsors are now paying me like a significant amount of money, more than they're paying those guys. So I won't reveal what I'm making per month in podcast sponsorships, but I can tell you I don't know of another guy that only pays about $30 per show in terms of show notes and paying my editors, and makes like light years, a number that would shock you, more per episode in that in terms of sponsor placement. So that is my biggest financial windfall, actually. It was not Heyo. It was not my current company that I just bought, and I'm acquiring many companies, but it's actually podcast sponsorships.
Wow. Okay. So this is actually critical. So you keep it simple. HostGator, I believe, is one of your sponsors, right?
Yep.
And HostGator will pay Nathan Latka's company to mention, I believe in usual media, there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. They'll pay per mention or whatever, and they pay you. Now, do you charge on a CPM basis or a per show basis?
Listen, I'm hoping your show is very unpopular and that very few people hear what I'm about to say, because it's stupid for me to share this. I literally lose leverage. It's honestly stupid.
Yeah.
But I will tell you because I like your beer, okay? I do not price based off CPM.
Wow.
I do not price based off placement. I do not price based off, is it a 30-second pre-roll or a 15-second post-roll or a 60-second mid-roll? I start every sponsor conversation with the following question. What are you currently paying to acquire customers on your other channels?